are involved in something right now that's called Sense. Tell us what that is and what you're getting ready to do.
Absolutely. So, importantly, well, I just told you my story. I'm far from the only person to have had the epiphany that acting training might help us learn something about how to do a better job of helping with social skills. A number of folks have had this realization. A number of women, by the name of Laura Gooley, who's down in Texas, Kelly Hunter in England, Cindy Schneider and Amelia Davies, who have written books about this. One wonderful person, and in some ways maybe perhaps the leader of the field in this area, is a professor by the name of Blythe Corbett at Vanderbilt. She's an associate professor over there in the Department of Psychiatry, and she is a well-established autism researcher. She looks at things like cortisol and stress hormones and how those things happen unfold in adolescence and autism. She, as I said, she works at Vanderbilt. She used to work at the UC Davis Mind Institute, but she also has had a longstanding interest in theater, and has actually been an actress at various points in her career as well. Has written plays. And around the same time that I was starting Spotlight, actually, she was developing this model called Sense. And Sense is similar to the approach that I described in that, it's about capitalizing on the techniques of theater training, but it actually even goes a step further and really focuses on every time actually, creating a play. They literally will create a play from start to finish, and the end of the 10 weeks of the program, the after-school program, is a true production in the community. And it's truly community embedded. It's a peer-mediated approach as well, so typically developing peers also are participating and are also getting the theater training experience too, and all the benefits of that. But again, they're integrating well-established and evidence-based core principles of behavioral techniques designed to improve social challenges, along with all of the really cool benefits of being involved in theater. So Blythe has been a pioneer in studying these kinds of approaches. She's done a series of community-based trials, initial randomized control trials, and I'm pleased to share that we recently received a large, what's called R01, multi-million-dollar, 4-year multi-site grant from the National Institute of Mental Health to study the Sense program here and at Vanderbilt with Dr. Blythe Corbett, and at Virginia Tech with Dr. Susan White. And we're all people who have done social programming for kids on the spectrum for a long time. Dr. White, Susan White, has done this in more cognitive behavioral-based approaches, and is now moving into the theater realm. And of course, I'm really excited to get a chance to do the Sense Theater program. And what's really neat about it too is, as I said, it's not only a chance to study this rigorously in the lab. Again, we're using brain and behaviorally based measures to examine what's going on before, during, afterwards, follow-up, but also to really work with our local community. So we're going to be partnering with our local school district that Stony Brook is in to host the actual events, and so they're allowing us to use their theater, and we'll work with them in the community to administer the program too. So it has this kind of great knock-on effect of not just trying to help the kids who have these challenges, but also perhaps to destigmatize autism a bit in the community, and then for folks in the area to look and say, hey, these kids are really good. These are not halfway shows. These are not just shows that are there to make people look and say, oh, look at them try. They're doing real theater, and we hope, we'll see, maybe improving their social competence as well.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some nuts and bolts in the program. When are you actually starting? Who is going to be involved? Like, are you putting feelers out to the community? You said you're working with a school. Will there be auditions? What's going to happen?
Yeah, great question. So It's very interesting. It's actually a true randomized trial in that we have sense as one condition, and then we also have a different condition that kids can be in, both of which are sort of active things that we believe to help us. And what's novel here is it's not just being compared to sitting on your hands and waiting. So people can come sign up. We have a number of families, several hundred families in the Long Island area of kids on the spectrum who we reach out to participate in studies. Any of them can join. There's also members of the local community, both typically developing kids and kids on the spectrum who can participate. We are putting out feelers. We're going to be putting ads in newspapers. We're going to be advertising on the web. But essentially, we're going to say, come on in and join us. And we're hoping to be beginning enrollment over the next maybe month or two. And then we're hoping March, April, we're going to be starting one of the two conditions. As I said, one is sense. The other one is something called Tackling Teenage, which is a approach for learning about some of the challenges of adolescence and pubertal development that happen for kids for all teenagers. But designed really for kids on the spectrum, talking about things like dating, talking about things like how your body changes, or how do you know if somebody's interested in you, and how do you know if you're interested, and how do you respond in certain ways. This is sort of another domain of social challenge that isn't exactly what we're focusing on in sense, but is also something we believe that many families and kids have told us they need. Don't just believe it, they've told us this. So our hope is that way we're providing a service and a benefit to everyone who enrolls, no matter what. So that process, as I said, begins over the next couple of months. We run our first set beginning in March, April, and then our second over the summer. And then we'll be running this for 4 years. So essentially, families can continuously enroll, and what's great is, of course, it's free.
Oh, that's amazing. That was going to be my next question. What is the cost? Now, is there going to be a third group of teenagers that you compare that don't get these social skills with?
Yeah, it's a good question. So at the moment, there's not. And this is because, actually, as I said, Blythe has done the wonderful work leading up to this, in which she's done those studies before. So
okay.
People have published on this. She's published on this a number of times, showing, compared to nothing, sense helps with kids being pro-social, kids' ability to understand and take each other's perspectives, ability to read emotions. So now what we want to understand is something more specific, is doing this sense theater program certainly seems to be better than just sitting around doing nothing. But is that special? Is it unique and specific to this kind of theater-based approach? Or do you just get it because you're getting out of the house and you're doing some activity with others, which of course is a huge question that, again, has been on my mind for 15 years. And it's really exciting to be involved in a project with wonderful colleagues where we actually get to start to try to answer that question.
I just think this is so smart. And I think, I'm curious to know what you think you're going to find. And I don't know whether that's an ethical question for you at this point, but I've certainly talked with Dr. Temple Grandin about what she thought helped her when she was a teenager to help her to be able to do the things that she's done. One of the first things she always cites is theater. And in talking to her mom said something that just rang so true with me, that she said, well, we all have to find our tribe. And if you don't have a tribe, your ability to try social things out and succeed diminishes greatly. And theater creates a tribe. We know that for sure. I don't know that taking a social class does, but I know that theater creates a tribe.
Absolutely. And we've seen that all along. And it's one of my favorite kind of knock-on effects of using this kind of approach, is because you're giving all these kids the opportunity to kind of interact in their terms and allow their quirks to be their quirks, right? Just like we let typically developing kids have their quirks be the things that allow them to connect. This can create that sense of tribe. I'll never forget the very first time I ran the Spotlight program. One of the kids in that initial group I told you about came over about halfway through and tugged on my shirt and said, "Hey, Matt." And I said, "What?" He where did you find all these kids? And I said, what do you mean? They're all from all around the area. Why do you ask? He goes, this is the first normal group of kids I've ever met.
Isn't that
And
lovely?
it's so powerful. And first of all, again, I think it highlights your point about, you have to find your tribe, but also I think it's so important to use approaches that give kids and adults, frankly, on the spectrum, the opportunity to find their place in that tribe.
Yeah.
And to see that tribe as theirs, if they want to, right? I've certainly also had kids come and say, I don't know, I don't want to do this, and
Right.
it's up to each individual person. But I think creating ways that people can figure out what their place is in the world and who they feel good with, that's what it's all about. And I so resonate with your point that I suspect that theater uniquely gives us this opportunity. And actually, to your point about what do we think we're going to find, I did a smaller version of the study that we're describing now here at Stony Brook recently, much smaller. The Sense study is going to be hundreds of kids. This was about 50, and we compared my intervention, the spotlight intervention, it's called STARI, to kind of an active group where kids were doing kind of recreational program. And I don't want to spoil it too much. The paper is coming out soon. But one of the things that we do find actually is exactly that over the course of that time, when we just ask kids, do you want to play with each other again? Do you want to see each other again? Who in this group, you have people in this group who are your friends, people who are engaging specifically in these theater-based activities seem to be saying yes more. Teens seem to be saying yes more.
Well, I know that one of the things our audience are asking is, what's the chance that we can get something like this in our community? Is Spotlight or Sense something that you guys already have a manual that if somebody wants to take it and replicate it someplace else, is it possible? Can they get trained?
Yeah. So those are excellent questions. So what I can tell you, first of all, the good news is there are manuals for things like this. So as I said, Dr. Laura Gooley, who's down in Austin, Texas, has a great book called the Social Competence Intervention Program, or SCIP, which is a very similar model. She actually created it for her dissertation, and frankly, I think it looks a lot like Spotlight and STARI. A woman named Sydney Schneider, a woman named Amelia Davies, both have similar books. You can buy them on Amazon. And so certainly for folks who say, I want something, right? It's not that there's nothing else there. But I think this is where both Blythe and I have tried to really think carefully as scientists, which is to say that there's, as you know, if you Google social skills books in Amazon, you get 100, maybe 200 options at this point. And only a fraction of those have ever really been studied. Only a fraction of those can truly be called evidence-based. I have a number of them over here, actually. I think both of us share the goal of ensuring that, rather than having sort of more horse races and more things for people to buy and be confused about, that we want to make sure that what we're putting out meets the highest standards of empirical science. When these models are becoming more distributed, when you can finally pick up a Sense manual or a STARI manual, that we can have that really crucial section in the front where we say, here's the data that suggests this will help, and I want to even go a step further and say, here's our guess about who it's most likely to help.
Yeah.
Because
I love that, but if this is a 4-year study, does that mean that you're not going to publish for 4 years, or are you going to have points along the way where you're going to publish?
We should have points along the way, and importantly, there have been publications along the way in the research literature about this model. The other thing I can say too is that there are ways to get trainings. I have colleagues who we've trained who now can go around and do these sorts of things. It's not quite formalized. It's not like one of these big network models like some other approaches have. And again, that's because we're being cautious. But certainly, we're not just going to keep our lips zipped for 4 years.
I hope not. I really hope not. That would be cruel. And you know, it's that thing of reinventing the wheel. I know that a lot of people have been doing this. We live here in Los Angeles, and we've got amazing theater groups for teenagers here. But for people that are in the middle of Idaho and have, you know, and they're saying, hey, wait a minute, what can we do here? I want to make sure that people get access to things. That's what we do here. So don't sit on it too long, Dr. Lerner, but we think that this is amazing. If people want to know more about Spotlight or Starry or Sense, where can we send them? I know that we want to send them to the Lerner Lab, which is lernerlab.com, correct?
That's right.
And people are going to drool because you've got a lovely website there that talks about a bunch of things that you're doing, and you have more things there that are just for teenagers. I was looking at your site and going, man, why don't we have this here? You got a study right now about spousal support?
Yes, that's true. Yes, one of my students is interested in trying to understand, what parents need to be able to get the support that they need to address the stresses that come along with being a parent. Very hard, and it can be hard for parents of kids on the spectrum.
Your website is drool worthy. For an autism parent, you look at it and you go, oh, I'm so glad they're studying. Oh, look at that. Look what they're doing. And you've got some performances listed on it. Yes?
Yeah, I think one thing that we really pride ourselves on, and it's something that I would say also, again, Blythe Corbett, who's my colleague, who I mentioned, who's leading the study, as well as Susan White at Virginia Tech. I think one of the things we all have in common is we all try to do research that is community informed and community driven. So what I mean by that is I've been at Stony Brook for 5 years, and I spent my first 2 years here, we were collecting almost no data. We ran almost no studies. Instead, I was out in the community meeting with parents, whether it's giving a talk to a parent-teacher organization or meeting with 4 moms in a basement with some lemonade and cookies, and sharing them with them what we wanted to do, but also listening and saying, what do you need? Because every community is unique in terms of its needs. And so the research program we have built here, and this is also true at Virginia Tech, it's also true at Vanderbilt, is really based not just on our interests as scientists saying, we think this is cool and important, but based on what those families have told us matters so much. And I think it gets to the point of this question of theater being really unique, is this program, families have been excited about it everywhere.
Yeah.
Didn't matter where we were.
Yeah.
And we're really trying to respond to the need.
Well, as I said, I appreciate you're doing the science, crossing the T, dotting the I, because that's going to make a huge difference in funding. But a lot of us already know that this is an amazing thing, that this has the ability to help, if not all, then certainly a lot of our teenagers to access social skills in a way that's really effective. So I know you're going to find out for sure, but I already know.
We're trying. I think what we want to know though is why and how and when and for whom, all the really nuanced questions. One of my the biggest inspirations I think in this field is actually a colleague of mine now at George Mason University named Talia Goldstein, and she studies the effects of theater on social development and social cognition in typically developing kids. And she'll go and work with 100 4-year-olds in a low-income classroom. And she's thought more about this issue than probably anybody on the planet. And I love working with her because what she keeps saying, she's been an actress and worked in theater. We've worked with major theater organizations together. And what she said is, those of us who work in this field have had that kind of intuition. But one, as scientists, we always need to check our intuitions and see if the data support them. But also, we need to be able to go further than that. And what we can do with data, the sort of magic of really good science, is you get to peel back the veneer of what just looks like it's so, and look underneath and say, well, what's really going on? And who is really benefiting, and how does this differ over ages? And one of the things that she's shown is that she's shown benefits, for instance, of participating in theater programs for 4-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds. But the benefits are really different in each age. And that has to also then be true if we're talking about kids on the spectrum. So now we can actually learn about what makes it work for each of those age ranges. And again, my goal, my dream is like an evidence-based menu.
I love it.
Right, you can bring in your 8-year-old and say, I've got these 10 things that I've done a 20-minute assessment with your child, and I can tell you, of these 10 things, here are the 4 of them that are most likely to be helpful, and now let's work together and figure out what he wants the most and what you want the most.
I absolutely love it. Again, we want to tell people to go to lernerlab.com, but I do want to mention again that Stony Brook is just one of the 3 sites where this is going to be happening. So the other one is at Vanderbilt, and then the third one is at Virginia Tech. And so if you are in any of those areas, you want to be contacting folks to know how you can get your child involved. 4 years worth of studies. We love that you guys got the funding. 3 years worth of study? I thought it was...
No, 4 years worth of studies, but it's free.
Oh, free. I thought you said 3. Yeah, free, amazing. We love free, but we love effective more, and I think it's going to be both. So again, look, there are articles right now about Sense, and we'll put some links on our website too and on our Facebook page so that you can find in all 3 places who to connect with to get your child started. Dr. Lerner, thank you so much for all of your work, and thank you for being with us. I look forward to having you back on the show to talk about what happens further down the road.
You got it. I'll come anytime. This has been great.